At the end of last year, a channel called Tales from the Crate uploaded a video called Vinyl Tag 2021, and it took the YouTube vinyl community by storm. So Andrew, this is my take. My name is Gordon, and this is Tip Top Vinyl. So today's video is going to be the Vinyl Tag 2021. I've watched quite a few of these videos already, and I've been really interested in doing one of my own, and I thought, what better time to do one? So question number 1 is a discovery in 2020. I thought long and hard about this one because there were so many different albums that I discovered in 2020, and for this, I have picked Hadestown. So this is a soundtrack that has taken the musical theatre world by storm. It's really quite different from the modern musical. I think some of my favourite songs on this would be All I've Ever Known, Wait For Me. I do like Why We Build the Wall as well. It is one that completely blew my mind on my first listen. Question 2 is a quarantine buy. I had quite a few to choose from. I've chosen the soundtrack to Anastasia. This soundtrack means a great deal to me because I have a very dear friend in Holland who kind of introduced me back to this because I'd listened to it many years ago. It didn't really capture my imagination then. And then I was recommended to listen to it again. I had no idea that it was on vinyl. And I was meant to be going to Holland to visit this dear friend of mine to watch Anastasia on stage. And then I found out this was on vinyl, and it was kind of an impulse lockdown buy. But I don't regret it. And it is pressed on this gorgeous coloured vinyl there. But some of my favourite songs on the soundtrack are My Petersburg, Still, Journey to the Past, Crossing a Bridge, obviously the classic Once Upon a December. Another one to listen to if you've never listened to it before. So question 3 is a bit different. It's an LP you would like to find in 2021. So I've got a few choices for this. So the first of these is an A3B3 copy of Dark Side of the Moon. Now, I've done a lot of research about Dark Side of the Moon, and apparently the A3B3 pressing is meant to be the best sounding one out there. And I had a reissue. I liked it, but I decided I really wanted to get an original that sounds amazing. The second of these is very, very scarce. I don't think I've ever seen one for sale online yet. And that's the soundtrack to The Last 5 Years. It's quite a modern musical. It's written by Jason Robert Brown. I think some of my favourite songs from The Last 5 Years would be She's a Goddess, Moving Too Fast, and Goodbye Until Tomorrow. And the third one happens to be a Record Store Day exclusive, and that is the musical anthology to His Dark Materials. I never picked it up because, like, the description was really quite odd about it. It said it was a compilation of various artists with songs inspired by the TV series, and I was like, don't really fancy that. But then I found it on Spotify, and it ended up being the actual soundtrack from the show, and very late on into last year, it became my most listened to album on Spotify. So yeah, I think I kind of need to pick that one up this year. The next question is a box set, and I'm so thrilled to be showing you this one. Hamilton. I got this for Christmas in 2020, and I was so surprised because this has been one I've been chasing for so long. And there was one time that I nearly managed to secure one, and then, long story, it got lost in the post. Yeah, that was devastating for me. Now, I've got to give a special mention here to a channel called The Record Spinner, because as you can see, this is actually in a protective sleeve. And he did a video which taught you how to use 2 normal sleeves to make one for a box set. When I got this box set, I decided I had to try and make one. I don't think I've done too bad a job. What do you think, Dylan? Anyway, Hamilton is a very popular musical at the moment. This vinyl set is beautiful. The camera definitely does not do justice to this, and that's the back of it as well, in case you were wondering. So number 5 is a concept album, and I have to admit I'm kind of cheating with this one because the album I'm about to show you is technically another musical theatre soundtrack. This didn't actually become a stage show until after the record came out. It's actually considered to be one of the first rock concept albums, and it's this, Jesus Christ Superstar by Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice. I was actually in Jesus Christ Superstar in a production in 2018, And it was kind of at the start of my record collecting, because it was that week I was gifted with my first record player. And this one was one that I actually went to a record store specially between the matinee and evening performances on the last day to pick up, because that day also happened to be the 48th anniversary of the release of this album, which was crazy. I suppose you can call it a concept album, but it might not be. Feel free to debate that in the comments if you disagree with me. Number 6 is an album where a band or an artist takes a completely different direction. Taylor Swift's Folklore. I have listened to every Taylor Swift album that's come before this, and I was just as surprised as many when she released this out of the blue. What an album this is, because it just shows you the genius of Taylor Swift and her writing. She is an artist that keeps reinventing herself. This album just proves how talented she can be. First time I heard this, I was completely mesmerised because it sounded like a completely different artist, to be honest with you. If you've never listened to this, I would definitely recommend giving this a go, even if you don't like Taylor Swift very much. My favourite tracks on this are probably Cardigan, August. The Lakes was worth getting this for alone, because I waited until I received this to listen to The Lakes. And it's the perfect album to listen to early evening in the autumn, early winter. She did release a few different variants of this. This one is the Meet Me Behind the Mall variant, and it's pressed on a nice light greyish coloured vinyl. So number 7 is a white label promo. So unfortunately I don't own any white labels. Let's move on. Question number 8 is a compilation. There's a very, very special one in my collection that I'm so excited to have. It's The Recurring Dream by Crowded House. I actually grew up with my mum's CD of this particular album. I managed to find one on eBay for a ridiculous amount of money, but it's quite rare. There weren't many pressed in the 90s, because that was the time when vinyl was going out and CDs were coming in. If there's something you really want, you have to jump on them when you see them. So that's what I did with this one. The sticker says it includes Weather With You, Don't Dream It's Over, and Instinct, which also happen to be 3 of my favourites. I love the song selection on this, and I love the order in which they come as well, because I've been a Crowded House fan for many years after attending one of the concerts of the original lineup. They're so unique in their composition and their instrumentation as well, and it's one that's definitely going to remain very special to me. So the next question is an album that tells a story. So I've chosen one that actually rhymes with that. Hunky Dory. The story behind this album is that it was actually the first David Bowie album that I was given for my collection. And it was all because a colleague of mine at a previous workplace and I used to discuss David Bowie endlessly. Bowie's kind of an essential for every collection in my opinion. There's definitely something for everyone. And this album has songs on it like Changes and Oh You Pretty Things. It is a fantastic album. It really warms my heart to have been given this as my first one. So Lisa, if you're watching this, thank you so much. I have played it so many times and it's one that I will continue to play. It's very special to me. Question 10 is an album that needs a vinyl pressing, and I've got a few different suggestions for this. So the first 2 are by the same artist, Take That, and it's The Circus and Beautiful World. I love the positive nature of some of the songs on there, like Greatest Day and Hold Up a Light. It's just one of those nostalgic albums for me personally. And I've said Beautiful World as well, because when I eventually went to listen to that one, I was just blown away by all of it. And it's definitely overdue, because I would absolutely 100% love to have those albums on vinyl. The 3 soundtracks I want to see released on vinyl are Starry, which is a brand new concept musical about the life of Vincent van Gogh. Seriously, if you've never listened to Starry, definitely go and listen to that, because it's got some great music on it. So 2 I would really love to see are 2 soundtracks of Les Miserables. The first one being the 2010 tour recording. It's probably never going to happen in a million years. My other choice for that would be the staged concert. And I think on vinyl they would sound absolutely fantastic. I know it's probably never going to happen, but we can dream, can't we? Question 11 is a common album and an uncommon album. I've chosen the same artist for this. For the common album, Billy Joel and Innocent Man. This album is very common to find, but it's definitely one of those classic albums of the 80s for sure. The lesser known album, this is Stormfront, and I have to admit that at the very end of 2019 I had a bit of an obsession with the song We Didn't Start the Fire. That ended up being one of my most played songs on Spotify for 2019. You definitely have to listen to this one because it's one that really surprised me, and I've played it a lot of times. So That's Not Her Style and the Downeaster Alexa and We Didn't Start the Fire sandwiched between those. It's a great run of songs. So yeah, that's the two I thought I'd choose for that one. Both Billy Joel. Definitely check those out if you haven't before. I'm afraid this next one is another bust for me. This question is an EP. I'm afraid I don't have any EPs. So number 13, unlucky for some, is a girl group. I'm afraid I've only got one girl group on vinyl. Glam Skanks Anything in Between. A little story about this actually. I saw Glam Skanks twice supporting Adamant on Singles Tour and the Friend or Foe Tour. They were selling them at the merchandise stand after the concert, and the band members were actually there. All of them have signed the jackets. This is kind of like a sort of glam punk rock style modern girl band. But yeah, I have to admit that when it comes to girl groups, I do not have many on vinyl yet. So question 14 is an album cover that you love. I discovered this was on sale on eBay and I had to get one because it was on my want list for ages. Don't laugh, it's Disney. I've picked Frozen. This album just glistens in the light. It's like ice. I don't know how they've done that effect, but it is absolutely gorgeous. I really love the soundtrack to Frozen, and I could only find copies of the songs. Like, Disney doesn't seem to want to release the actual soundtracks of some of the films, so this was an exception. It is the deluxe version of the Frozen soundtrack, which includes all the normal songs on side A and B. And then on side B you've also got the orchestral stuff, including the choral, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, Vueli? I don't know how to say that. That's one of my favourite tracks on it. I think this score has to be listened to all the way through to be appreciated. I'm not going to lie, I do think that a couple of them are a bit overrated, the songs themselves. For the most part, the soundtrack itself of this film is magical. I really hope that they press the deluxe soundtrack to Frozen 2 in the same vein as this, because I just want Panics into the Unknown, you know? Question 15 is an album that you've listened to the most, and there was only one that I could pick for this. Pink Floyd, The Division Bell. I listened to this for the first time on Spotify after only having listened to Dark Side of the Moon, and for a second album I was completely blown away by it. It is completely different to Dark Side of the Moon, and I know now that it's from a time where Pink Floyd was a different band, and they were kind of taking a bit of a different direction. The song I really want to mention on this is High Hopes. This song properly captivated me for the first time when I went to the Pink Floyd Their Mortal Remains exhibition, and they had surround sound speakers all the way around the circumference of the room. And they had a screen on all four walls showing the same video, and you could just sit or lie there as long as you wanted. This song was on repeat. It's just got a really sort of calm, relaxing feel to it, and I think I must have lain there for over an hour listening to that song. I just love the instrumentals on it, including David Gilmour's guitar at the end, which completely soars above the entire thing. As a whole, the album is stunning, and this is actually the 25th anniversary press on limited edition blue vinyl, which I'm really excited to have, because the original that came out in the 90s also got pressed on blue vinyl. So the next question is an album that you had to get an OG copy of. Sticking to the Pink Floyd theme here, we have their masterpiece, The Wall. I absolutely adore this album. It is probably the best concept album ever made. But the reason that I wanted this first pressing was because on the inner sleeves there are a couple of errors. The first one is found on side 2, and there are lyrics to a song that didn't actually make it onto the final album, and the song is called What Shall We Do Now? Unfortunately, that song was too long for the album, so they recorded empty spaces. And in my opinion, What Shall We Do Now is definitely the better of the two. The lyrics to the original one are here. And I just think that's a nice bit of history there. And then the other one is a misprint in that the order of songs on side 3 for the lyrics, they're completely off. If you notice there, it starts with Is There Anybody Out There? That's incorrect. The album actually starts side 3 with Hey You, and the lyrics to Hey You, instead of being up here, have ended up down here, underneath Comfortably Numb. There's probably a reason for it. It's for these inner sleeves alone, and for the fact that the first pressing of The Wall is probably the best sounding version of it, that I have this. Pink Floyd, they're probably my favourite band of all time, and this is probably one of my favourite albums of all time, so that's Pink Floyd's The Wall. Question 17 is the last album you purchased. The last album I purchased was actually in one of the 2021 sales. It's another record that I listened to growing up, and it's one that I had to have because it's just a classic for me, and that is Gold, the Best of Spandau Ballet. Spandau Ballet have actually recently released a brand new compilation album. To be honest with you, I think this has the better track selection on it. It's bookended by my two favourite songs by Spandau Ballet, Gold and Through the Barricades. The songs on it are fantastic, there's not a lot bad to say about this. It's really got a classic 80s sound to it that I absolutely love, so I had to have this one. I knew that this one was probably going to go out of print soon, so that is Gold, the Best of Spandau Ballet. Question 18 is an album they don't get. And it took me a while to think about this one, but then I realised what it meant, because I kind of feel like it's an album that I personally love, that a lot of people around me haven't heard of, and when they've gone to listen to the music, they just don't understand why I love it so much. And it's quite a special one as well, because this is one that I had to go to the Netherlands to track down. Online, albeit online, and that is the Record Store Day 2020 exclusive Koyaanisqatsi. This is the soundtrack to a movie that has music written by Philip Glass, and Philip Glass is a composer that I've only recently really discovered, because I was introduced to this by a friend of mine, I think in about 2015, 2016. And I was shown a scene from it called The Grid. I went ahead and listened to the rest of the soundtrack after I'd heard that track. It's one that I always go to when I'm feeling really stressed and want to wind down, because I feel that it's one you can get lost in. The word Koyaanisqatsi actually means life out of balance. It's an influential experimental film, and it shows you scenes that show how life is becoming out of balance. Kind of like we don't appreciate the planet we live on anymore. It was considered completely significant in the 80s, but I watched this film all the way through for the first time in 2020, and I think it's one that should be seen by everyone. But the soundtrack in it is just absolutely superb, and if you haven't listened to any Philip Glass, I would really recommend you do. A lot of my friends don't get it, but I absolutely love it. The penultimate question is a punk album or something close to it. There was only one album in my collection that really spoke to me as being punk, but again, it's not punk, it's more post-punk. And that is Dirk Wears White Socks, the debut album of Adam and the Ants. My first proper listen of Adam and the Ants was Prince Charming, after I was asked to dress like Prince Charming in a stage production of Into the Woods. I listened to Prince Charming, and then I listened to a lot of his other work, and then moved on to Kings of the Wild Frontier, and then finally this album, because I'd been told this album was completely different because it was the first one they ever did, and it's also a different lineup of Adam and the Ants on this. It's an album I feel that needs to be listened to in the night time to be appreciated. This is actually the Record Store Day press, on white vinyl, and even though it's coloured vinyl, it still sounds pretty damn good. It's an album I feel like I'm still working out, if that makes sense. I kind of feel like there are some albums that I listen to for the first time and then listen to a few more times and I don't really get them until later on. So that's one that I'm probably going to listen to a bit more before I try to explain it. No, I found that question quite difficult. The final question is favourite 2020 reissue. There was only one that I could really pick in 2020, and that's The Wall, live in Berlin. I saw this in a record store back in 2018. I just left it there and I never went back, and it's one of my biggest regrets. So judge of my delight when I find out that Record Store Day 2020 are reissuing it. And it's on beautiful clear vinyl, which has some really nice symbols on it, the hammers. And it's also got a really interesting cast of musicians and actors alike in it as well. Bryan Adams, Paul Carrack, Cyndi Lauper, Sinead O'Connor, Joni Mitchell, Van Morrison. In the trial scene, you've got Tim Curry, Albert Finney as the judge. It was broadcast on TV and everything. It was that big at the time. And it's the 30th anniversary limited edition release. Hard to believe that something like this, when I listened to it, happened 30 years ago. Because it sounds so modern. It sounds like it should have happened recently. I would definitely recommend listening to this one if you love the original Wall and haven't listened to any of the live versions. So that's it for the 2021 Vinyl Tag. Thank you to everyone for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe, leave a comment saying anything you like. Tell me what you liked about the video, what you didn't like about the video. Let me know, because I'm always looking to improve. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.